Good morning, students. Today we are on our last section of 1.2, our last section of piecewise graphs. And we're going to review graphing them, and then we are going to learn how to write the functions from a graph. So let's do a quick review on graphing these piecewise graphs. So if you remember, the first thing that we're going to do is we're going to write the boundaries. Going to highlight the boundaries. The boundaries are -5, -2, 2, and 5. So those are our boundaries. So there's -5, there's -2, there's 2, and there's 5. So there's our boundaries. So we're using a highlighter because we'll show the boundaries, how they affect our functions. All right. So our first function is y equals 2. So y equals 2, well, that's a horizontal line, right? It's just no matter what's our x value, y equals 2. So there's our y equals 2. If x is greater than or equal to -5, so it's nothing smaller than -5, so greater than or equal to, so that's shaded in. But x is less than or equal to, oops, I'm sorry, up here, x is less than or equal to -2. So I have -2, and it's also equal to that one. So I can erase all the rest of this line. If my eraser were any good. So I think we can see that right there. So there's our line. And then we have y equals -1/2 x plus 1. So my slope is -1/2, and my y-intercept is 1. So I found my y-intercept is 1, and it's -1/2. So -1/2, -1/2. Using graph paper and a ruler is really good for these. So there's my line, but I want to see what my parameters are. If -2 is less than x, or x is greater than -2. So here's -2. And it'll be an open circle for this line. So it's a closed circle for this line, but an open circle for this line. And x is less than or equal to 2. So this one is a closed circle. And I get rid of the line on this side. So there's my second function. And now my third function, if y equals x minus 2. So my third function, I'm going to go y equals x minus 2. So my slope is 1/1. My y-intercept is -2. Okay. So my y-intercept is -2, 1, 2. And then my slope is 1, 1, 1, 1, 1, 1. So there's my line. So x is greater than 2, so none of this below 2 is included. It's greater than 2 and less than or equal to 5. There it is, nothing above there. There we go. So we just reviewed how to graph these when we have our piecewise function. We have 3 functions. I just graphed it. There it is. Now it stops here, So what's my domain? My domain is x is greater than or equal to -5, and it's less than or equal to 5. So that's my left-right. It extends from here to here. And then my range goes from here, which is 0, so it's greater than 0. So y is greater than or equal to 0. And it actually ends here at 3. That's the highest y value. It's less than or equal to 3. So there's my domain and range. So that's kind of a review of yesterday. And now what we're going to do today is we are going to take a graph. We're going to take a graph and we're going to write the equations from that graph. Write the functions. Okay, so on page 11, I want you to pause the video and go ahead and write these. I'll give you a couple boundary points. You don't have to worry about this because we are not doing this. So go ahead and just cross that out. We're just using this so we can keep our notes in the right page. Notes in the same place. So this is notes 1.2c. All right, and if I were to draw in our little boundaries, we have a boundary here, we have a boundary here, and then we have a boundary here. So 1, 2, 3, 4, so we have a boundary at -4, we have a boundary at -1, we have a boundary at 3. So go ahead and draw these 3 functions in, and we're going to learn how to write them. Learn how to write these functions. So let's start with this one here on the left. I drew them in pen to see where they started and ended. But what I'm going to do is I'm going to continue them on in pencil just so I could see my y-intercept. So I continue this on to see my y-intercept. So for this equation, I have a y-intercept of -1. And then I have a slope of +1, -1, +1, -1. So I have a slope of +1, -1. So that equals -1. So the way I write that, I write it in my y equals mx plus b. So I have y equals m, which is -1, x plus a -1 plus -1 is right there. So there's my equation for number 1. So my x value is greater than -4, and it's less than or equal to -1. Less than or equal to -1. So there's number 1. Now let's look at number 2. Oh, great. It's a horizontal line. That makes it easier. So y equals 1, 2, 3. Y equals 3. If x is greater than -1 and less than or equal to, because it's shaded in, 3. Less than or equal to 3. There's my second function. And now number 3 I have right here. Oh, okay, so we don't have a y-intercept, so I'm going to continue this on. 1, 2, 1. I'm going to continue it on. Now I'm going to check it because that's a bit far. So if I look here, I've got 1, 2, 1. So 1, 2, so positive 2 over 1. So my slope equals 2 over 1, or 2. Now that's the same as -2 over -1, right? If I do -2 over -1, that gives me 2 also, right? Negative and negative. So from here, I'm going to go -2, 1, -2, 1, -2, 1. Okay, so that lands me at the same place. So this is in fact my B. My y-intercept is negative 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Negative 5. So if I plug my slope, 2, and my y-intercept of negative 5 into y equals mx plus b, I get y equals 2x minus 5. And then I'm going to take this back out. And my x, if x is greater than greater than 3. If x is greater than 3, because it keeps on going forever. So there are my three functions. Now I'd like to write it as a normal function. I'd like to write it as a piecewise function. Let's see if I have enough room here. So f of x equals, start off with number 1. F of x equals negative 1x minus 1 if negative 4 less than x less than or equal to negative 1. Got it. Second function, y equals 3 if negative 1 is less than x is less than or equal to 3, and it equals 2x minus 5 if x is greater than 3. So I can do a quick check. My boundaries are negative 4, negative 1, 3. Negative 4, negative 1, 3. Okay, got my boundary. So there, I just created the functions from the graph. So that's my answer right there. Created the functions. So you get to write a piecewise function for these two graphs. That's all you have for homework tonight, is to write a piecewise function for those two graphs. All right. If you'd like extra work or an extra challenge, I'll put in a worksheet, and you can do a couple more of these to impress me. But if not, your homework is number 14 and 15. All right. Good luck. Please ask me any questions that you have, and Godspeed.